the death contemplation. So I'll combine the two. And so when we're looking at life after death, what does it actually mean? So specifically as a human being, life after death, what are we actually looking at, and what's the experience? And it's something that is not so easy to prove. Like as say Buddhist people, we just take it as a given. It's something that we believe. I mean, it's something that I've never had personal experience of. I mean, I've had that life flash in front of my eyes. My life experience sort of flash in front of my eyes. I'll mention that later. But it's something that the vast majority of us, we haven't seen it. We haven't seen a person say like arising in a future life. We haven't seen the consciousness, the stream of consciousness, say like rising up and taking rebirth either in a higher a low plane. Because with that kind of ability, you're essentially looking at really advanced psychic power, which the vast majority of the population don't have. I mean, you will get very good clairvoyance, psychic mediums, but with that kind of ability, it's something which is beyond the scope. It's a very, very, very sharp, very specific kind of ability that even the best psychic mediums and clairvoyants don't have that. It's a supernormal power which comes from a purified mind. It's not like it is possible to develop psychic power from past lives, and psychic power has samadhi. Has say stillness, tranquility. Incredibly, really profound, peaceful states of mind as its basis for psychic phenomena, because that's the only, to really know and see exactly what's happening when a person dies, what happens with that stream of consciousness. You really need your attention. It almost needs to be like a laser beam to see the speed. I mean, even the Buddha said that the speed that the mind actually rises and falls. So when we have the body and mind. We have body, which is made up of the four elements that we see, say on the earth, wind, water, fire, and then you have the four mental. I won't get too technical with this, especially with the Pali, but there's four component parts of the mind, and those facets of the human mind rise and fall so fast that the Buddha, even as advanced and incredibly wise as the Buddha said, he couldn't find a simile which would correlate to the speed at which the human mind, consciousness, awareness, all the different components. I won't go into detail. The language is a little bit. Vast majority of it, I can only expect you to be familiar with it. But there's the speed at which the facets of the mind rise and fall, and we become consciously aware. The Buddha couldn't actually put an analogy on it because of the speed. You're looking at like microseconds. And when a person dies as a human being, and then they take rebirth in their next life, I mean, it's instantaneous. It's like it's faster than a flash of lightning. As soon as the person dies, with the mind experience, when the person's mind is at the lowest point, death takes place. The mental, what they call it, the stream of consciousness drops down to its lowest level, and as soon as the mind rises back up, and then rebirth takes place in that process as the conscious awareness rises up, and then you can check things like Abhidharma to know exactly the thought moments, all the very, very fine mental factors, this and that, which I don't expect most of you guys to even be familiar with. It's not really your business unless you're very fascinated by this kind of phenomena. So the speed, very, very fast with the rising up into the next rebirth. And what does the person know and see? A consciousness takes rebirth. It can take rebirth, because the complexity of karma the person, the being, the consciousness can really take rebirth. I mean, anywhere across the globe, in other realms of existence, in ghost realms, demon worlds, the hell realms, the animal realms, which lie below the human realm. They're states of, say, deprivation and suffering. And it's only, say, the human realm where you've got a real ability to actually develop yourself, because the misfortune, the suffering, the hardship, the pain in those lower worlds can be overwhelming to essentially become an obstacle to develop the spiritual path. States of deprivation, trying to survive, competing with other beings in these worlds, being thirsty, hungry, being subjected to extreme heat and cold in the hell realms, according to karma. So there's all these worlds which relate to the nature of the mind that a person dies with, and the nature of their mind will determine, like, their what would you call it, the quality of the rebirth that they are born into. So it's largely that the current life is largely responsible. The current life is largely responsible for the quality of the next rebirth, but sometimes because karma is based on say, like, intention, what you actually do with your body, your speech, your mind, with thinking, the direction of your mind, that it will shape. Oh, I lost my train of thought. It will actually shape. It will shape the state of the consciousness, and upon death, that will determine the state of the rebirth. So that the whole karmic question is very, very complex. Only the Buddha could know exactly, with every single person in every single instant, the causes and effects and the dynamics of a single being. Even the two chief disciples, Sariputta, Moggallana, did not have the incredible psychic power, the depth and the range of the psychic power to know that in every single case. So only one being, So in one world system, only one Buddha arises at one, say, supremely enlightened Buddha. What they call, the word they use is a Sammasambuddha that we see in our current what would you call it, delineation, the current Buddha cycle that we find ourselves in. And you can have beings that they call, say, silent Buddhas, Pacceka Buddhas, who have the enlightenment qualities that the Buddha has. They have a range of skills, but the Pacceka Buddhas, the silent Buddhas, don't have the teaching ability, the advanced skills and teaching ability that the Buddha, the Gautama, the Buddha we know, the Sammasambuddha. But in essence, so as the person takes rebirth, that next life, I mean, what do they know? I mean, do they have memories of the past, the previous birth? Some beings may know, especially children. There's been examples of children who've had memories of past life, in very, very clear detail, times, places, persons, families they were born into, the children they had previously, and the karmic relationships between people. The whole dynamics. It's karma's, because of the complexity. You're looking at absolutely every move you make, every second of the day. You're making karma through intention. As soon as your mind moves in any direction, moves from a state of stillness, you're making karma. Karma relates to that process of action, what you're actually doing. There's something that you're doing through the mind, through the senses, body, speech, and mind. And so when the person takes rebirth, they may have memories from the past. That children are much more sensitive, intuitive. Their minds are not so cluttered. They have a greater potential to remember the past, sometimes in very great detail. There's been a number of documented cases in this area, and absolutely, say proven with full evidence, and with with research scientists, even traveling across the world, interviewing families, times, places. So it's almost like a watertight assessment of say like a child's account of their say past life experience, families, where they died, all the fine detail. But so the person arises in the current life. Say the human realm. Naturally, you're going to be reborn as a baby. Even it was quite unusual, even with Ajahn Brahm's underlying parami, because his personal development was quite say solid. Even as a younger man, was able to get quite good meditation, and had very, very strong faith and confidence in the Buddhist teaching, and he was a regular young man from a working class background, but his personal standard, of morality, what would you call it? Personal qualities, morality, his personal makeup was definitely much more refined and wholesome, say, than the average young man sort of running the streets of London. So we see, the person arises, say, in the human realm. You can be reborn as a baby almost anywhere in the world, but he was born to. They weren't even with the qualities that he had, that he was born with, the Buddhist, say Buddhist karma in simple terms. The parents, from what I understand, weren't Buddhist at all. They were. I can't even say. You didn't even say they were even practicing Christians. But his parents sounded like quite good people. Probably inclined towards Catholicism, because Britain, like the UK, depending where you live, is largely is dominated by different creeds within the within the Catholic tradition. I think what have you got, about something like 20 odd at least. The last time I checked, that was well over 12 months ago. At well over 20 odd different major sects within the Christian fraternity, with slight nuances and I wouldn't say biases, but different like slants on the Bible, the New and Old Testament, the life of Jesus, and all the major historical events. And so, as the person takes rebirth, and even the family may not necessarily. There must be an underlying karmic connection between, say for example, Ajahn Brahm, his parents, to be reborn in a particular family in a very specific time and place. So even though the parents, from what I understand, weren't even Buddhist at all, weren't even heavily involved in Catholicism, so he arises, with that family. With I think his brother was younger than he. His father, both the parents were good, good people, had a degree of moral integrity. Born into, say like a working class, a regular working class family in London. So his personal development doesn't necessarily reflect the circumstances that he was born into, because sometimes you can get children who have been Buddhist in the past life, and they can be reborn in families which are not necessarily Buddhist. But the thing is that the religious faith, it does make a big difference, but it's not the only difference. It's not the only factor. If you have very close karmic relationships with parents and one circle of friends, that will not be broken with the process of karma and rebirth. So the close friends that you have, the parents that you have, brothers and sisters, you're going to reconnect with these key people again and again and again and again for multiple lifetimes. And the Buddha mentioned that principle in the suttas, that it is difficult. The words were, it is difficult to find any person, say, on this earth, within the human realm, who has not been your mother, your father, your sister, your brother, your daughter, your son, And when you're looking at the, say, at the time of the Buddha, I'm only guessing that the population of the earth, I'm only guessing would have been well over, it would have been maybe possibly I'm only guessing tens of millions across the globe. Say well over 2,500, 60 odd years ago, as a rough estimate. And even the Buddha said that it would not be easy to find someone on the planet that you did not have a karmic connection with, and that's a really quite a profound statement, a deep statement. So the vast majority of, especially the people connected with Jhana Grove, with Bodhinyana, the nuns' monastery, Dhammaloka, we've got a very firm connection between all of us. So even though the relationships that we have between us may not necessarily be perfect, they could even be antagonistic, that the connection between you has been in place for multiple lifetimes, easily, dozens and dozens and dozens. Probably far more than that, but it's the same thing again. You've got to have incredible psychic ability, the most powerful, the most profound, to really know and see exactly what happens, the dynamics between people. And so with the life experience, as we come into the second life, that the mind consciousness, it sounds a bit hard to believe, but the reality is that the mind consciousness contains all the past memories, the seeds of karma, the past behaviors, the preferences, the likes and dislikes. Naturally, the past life will be the dominant principle. It will be that life will be that thing that which influences the current personality to the greatest degree. So the kind of person you are, you essentially you are the sum total of everything you have been. So if you really want to get down to, if you really want to look at the big picture, the person you are now is a product of endless lifetimes, as the Buddha said in the sutras, that no beginning point can be found to this process of karma and rebirth. So you are the sum total of all those numberless lifetimes, both high and low. And this is why human beings can be quite complex. And sometimes you can see within a person's personality, you can see contradictory qualities. You can meet people who can be quite generous, benevolent, and have a degree of kindness and compassion, but also they may also be people who are competitive, who seek for power, who are quite egocentric. You can get differing qualities within a human being, and you imagine how does this person's almost, I wouldn't say like split personality, but this person has almost like polar qualities within the one personality. And sometimes when you're looking at psychiatry, they talk about multiple personalities, but in essence you're looking at the facets of potentially the facets of different lifetimes. And this is one way you can explain it. They've had cases. I haven't looked at this kind of stuff for many years, but with a certain person may have had something like supposedly five or six personalities. But when you get these very clear, defined behaviors, which look like five people in this one person, you could be looking at five lifetimes being projected out from that person in the current lifetime. And so this is how we would explain it. But so the person can run the full gamut of say like outstanding qualities with say intelligence, genetics, things like ability with meditation, the ability to relate with other people. There's all sorts of different human skills that we can see, both for good and possibly for for bad. For choice of better words, for bad. Maybe things which can lead to trouble and difficulty within themselves and others. And as the person continues on with the second lifetime, that you will see when you look at the personal dynamics, what actually the life experience of that individual as karma, like starts to I wouldn't say fall, but starts to take place. Karma, doesn't necessarily just drop on someone out of the blue. Within a very, very short time frame. Karma, it's almost like karma seeks an opportunity. If specific karmas can't reach you in a certain time and place, it's just a matter of time before the fruit will fall. Before those effects will take place, and it could be 5 years, 10 years. To give you an idea, there was a man and his wife. The gentleman was a businessman. His wife was learning about Buddhism, learning to meditate. She was a good person. The husband was a little bit dodgy, a bit greedy, but sneaky. You couldn't really necessarily be trusted in business so much, but his wife was the better of the was the better person in the equation. And what happened exactly? He had a situation where he had a habit of diddling people. He was given furniture by one of our disciples, and he said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, I don't have the money right now, but I can repay you once I have this particular business transaction come through." That was well before the pre-COVID thing. And then he kept stalling, and he just didn't roll up with the money. And the people who gave him the furniture gave him the furniture in good faith. The lady was a friend of one of the monks who was here previously, who's now dead. So what happened was, he sort of facilitated. He said, "Well, you've got this new couple that I know from the monastery are moving into the area, just in Byford. They need a new lounge suite. He said, you're prepared to sell yours, and he doesn't have the liquidity right now, but he'll pay you back later." But he kept stalling, and he was up to all sorts of other tricky, dodgy things. So much, just sort of ripping people in little ways on a regular basis. But then he ended up with not long after that. Because you're dealing with good people. If you rip the karma which will fall, if you rip a good or wholesome person, is heavier than if you rip, say, like a criminal, because you're looking at ethics. You're looking at the quality of the ethics on both sides. You have to think of the two individuals and the interplay. You've got to look at the whole business, not just one person. So you're looking at the quality of the morality on both sides and the dynamics between them. And not long after that furnishings mistransaction, that guy got afflicted with a really severe. It wasn't long after. It was almost like within. It was under 2 weeks. It was probably about 12 days, maybe 11 or 12 days. He got afflicted just straight out of the blue, afflicted with this major candida. Intestinal infection, really bad, top to bottom, and it just laid him right out. He was quite sick, very, very low energy. He couldn't work, he didn't die, but he was sick for quite some time. So he came around like really fast. The actual dynamics, whatever situation you're looking at, you have to take everything into consideration, because sometimes you can have a situation where, and this is where it gets slightly complicated, that the Buddhist couple who were ripped off, who weren't repaid their money, there must have been something in the past for those wholesome people to be cheated. There must have been something, because you're looking at roughly about, I'm only guessing, probably about with good quality furnishing, probably close to about $1,000. So it's not chicken feed. So there must have been something in the past which brought about those circumstances for the Buddhist people personally, and the dynamics with the unscrupulous man. As smart as he was still dodgy. So you can have people who are quite intelligent. They're sharp, fast, intelligent. They're quite cunning. The ability to think, the ability to scheme, the ability to manipulate other people is quite sharp. But the emotional intelligence is not at the same level. So you see there that the faculties are not in balance. So you can get, as you know, you can get someone who's brilliant, but they can be morally unscrupulous. We've had guys up at Carnet, and a number of these guys could do PhDs, or they had business. They were specialists in business management. So you've got the full range, even in the prison system, from the very, very highly intelligent to, say, like working class type of characters. But the thing is, the morality. The reason why people get themselves into trouble in that scenario is because the morality is not solid. It's not together, and without sidetracking too much, the vast majority of the people within, say, the prison system, and the vast majority of the people who get into trouble a second, third, fourth, fifth time, maybe 10 times, they either re-engage in criminal activity, or they're associating with their criminal friends. As one of the prison officers said exactly that the main reason why the felons keep coming back again and again and again and again is because they keep associating with their criminal friends. So this whole process with conditioning, your friends, mum and dad, they rub off on you, family and friends, things like drugs and alcohol, mental illness, all these different facets. They have the ability to alter and shape your personality, both for good and not so good. But so when we look at the life experience, the complexity of the human mind, the life experience, what we're aiming for is to try to develop ourselves in a wholesome manner. I'd imagine at least half of you guys would have some familiarity with just the main principles of the Buddhist teaching. But it's one thing to read, and then it's another thing to say walk the talk. And so naturally with the monastics, they're expected to train themselves properly. They're expected to live the life in a correct manner, because the thing is we're fully support on the lay community, and the understanding is that if the monastics live a suitable lifestyle, as what the Buddha dictated, and they are helping out with the local community, that you definitely will not starve, and you won't die from the cold, from not having, say, like shelter. The four main requisites for the monastics: the robes, bowl, the shelter, dwelling place, medicines. What's the fourth one? So bowl, robes, the bowl and robes, and then the medicines and the dwelling place. So you've got the four main requisites for monastic life. Yeah. So virtually no matter, even in say like Italy, even if you went Tudong, you went say that say traveling like on foot, you were walking on foot in Italy which is a country dominated by Catholicism, that you won't starve. You know, you won't starve in Italy, absolutely guaranteed. Even the Catholic people, Italian Catholics, will put food in your bowl because they have, historically, they have an understanding of monastics, of Christian monastics, and of the monks actually coming down into the villages, the local villages, and collecting food, say like in their bowls. I don't know exactly what kind of bowls they had at the time. I mean, they've been doing that for hundreds of years, and then going back, back to their location, maybe a valley, maybe a mountaintop. You know, these mountaintop monasteries that you have in Italy. Some of them are just quite. Italy, Greece. I mean, absolutely spectacular. You know, hanging off the edge of cliffs. You know, I saw several like that. And so, you know, you're looking at, they recognize the lifestyle, and they recognize that even though they're Buddhist and we don't necessarily agree with your teaching, that we know you're a good person, a practitioner, and, you know, we don't want to see you starve or basically being like sleeping out, so on the streets in the cold. So, you know, you can guarantee that you can survive. Even for months, even you could probably do it for years, and you'd still be okay. Probably might even end up in the paper, you know, major papers in Italy. But so the way the karma. So we're moving, moving into the second life, and once karma, not only from the past life, even previous life, but the past life is usually the most significant, and it's the most pronounced. When it comes to karmic effect, you can the last couple of lifetimes can make a difference, but it may be more subtle, maybe a little bit harder to spot, because you usually find that the big things, the life-changing events, you can almost put it down to past life, but it's a little bit more complex like that, because karma is described as action through the body, through speech, through the mind, through say like thinking, how you think, emotional thought, the kind of processes you have running through the mind when you do things, through speech with the physical body. And so what we're looking at is if a person is reasonably cluey, or if they've got some underlying, say, understanding, they may decide to follow, say, like a religious, spiritual path. And people's karma can be quite interesting in the sense that we had a young monk who was staying at Jhana many years ago. Must have been at least well over 20, probably, I'm only guessing, well over 28, 29 years ago. And he was a monk with a couple of panzas with Ajahn Appiccato, and one day, and this is the way the karma works, it's so precise. One day he woke up, he'd already been a Buddhist monk for several years and was a meditator and was studying the Buddhist teaching, and one day he woke up and he told Ajahn Appiccato that Jesus was calling him. So I don't know whether that's related with. I'm not being rude or unkind, but I'm not saying if that's some kind of mental condition, or if it's actually a true to life personal experience. You know, even the Christian people will say. Or they can be indoctrinated, they can join a church, and then they've reached a stage where they see the light, or they feel the love of Jesus, or they feel that the Lord is calling them and wants them to maybe be, say that like their disciple, or is setting a place for them in heaven. People have slightly different experiences and the depth of the experience. But so he spoke with Ajahn Appiccato about this. And Ajahn Appiccato could understand very, very quickly that this was a karmically related thing that he was going through. So he must have had some Christian karma previously for this mind state to arise with the level of force that it did. because he wasn't able to stay. After he talked things over with Ajahn Jagro. The guy, he must have been a Christian previously. So practicing Buddhist in the current life, he must have been a Christian in the past life. It just, this kind of phenomena just doesn't come out of nowhere. There's very, very clear, precise, reasonable reasons why it takes place. So Ajahn Jagaro rang the abbot of New Norcia and said, "I have a young monk who basically wants to join your community," and they were just thrilled that one of the Buddhist monks was coming over to their fraternity. Probably the best thing that happened all year, and it doesn't happen very often. And so he would join the New Norcia community, and he was reasonably settled there. But the main complaint with him was he didn't have time to meditate. He was working all day, and they do these little prayer sessions. They're like where the Muslims have these 5 times the call to prayer. They had that at New Norcia with the Christian monks, in the chapel. And you can understand that. I mean, it actually makes sense to me that kind of mindfulness training of attention, religious aspiration, and whatnot. You can see, there's very, very sensible reasons for this kind of process. And so eventually, I think he lasted a couple of years, and then he left, went back to lay life. But they have this mentality where people are supposed to ordain for life, and that's a bit of a like a tall order, because even with the monks, that you're encouraged, but you're not expected to basically be in robes till you die. People, their personal lives can be. There's all sorts of different dynamics going on. We had one of our monks. He just got incredibly unhappy, very, very, very unhappy. His poor mother died at home in Germany. He had a teenage daughter that he was basically molding into a young Buddhist person, and and she thought the world of her father, and was really, really pleased. So even though he hardly ever, I think when he left, his ex-partner was pregnant with a child. I only think he even saw the child once before he came to Australia, and so his daughter grew up without him, and whatnot. But he reconnected with her. He's still in Australia now, but the connection between him and the daughters is quite solid. But the dynamics are very, very complicated. You can have a situation where you can have people who are really into this kind of multi-faith mentality. It's like the person's like a mixed bag. They want to take, say, the best from Christianity, Buddhism. It could be the Sikhs, Zoroastrianism, the Jewish faith. They want to take all the all the sweet bits, all the good stuff from all the major traditions that we know of, and then sort of develop a spiritual synthesis of all these good qualities. And if you're looking at the major principles that we see in the key faiths that we have in the world, the principles that have actually endured over time, over centuries minimum. I'm no expert in this area, but a different aspect, religious practices, aspects of training, of belief, and whatnot. If they've lasted like 500 years plus, there must be something in them. The principles must hold water. They need to be reasonably together. To make sense. They actually are of some benefit to the individual, to the religious community, and there's very, very clear dynamics why they have these dynamics within their specific belief system. Because if something doesn't work, if something does, if it doesn't work, if it creates problems, like certain things can create problems in religious communities. Usually find that kind of approach may be, say, like abandoned or disregarded or eliminated over time, because it's not of value, and it doesn't support and solidify the teaching as a whole. So let me think. So one of the retreatants asked about the reflection on death, and because they're going through a cancer experience at the moment, and so with the reflection on death, I mean, why did the Buddha even teach that in the first place? And so, a lot of some of these, there's a number of meditations which are more like the monks and nuns meditations, and they're very, very firm, and they're quite forceful. And you need to be, when you're working with these practices, you need to be a bit careful, because they can have what would you call it? They can be sort of like antagonistic to the individual concerned. I mean, when I really started getting with the practice I'm doing now with the body practice, the internal practice. I mean, I had like quite severe nightmares for several weeks, because my mind kept resisting it. It just didn't like this kind of the defilements, the underlying forces and energies in the personality which obstruct the path. Did not like this approach at all, and so that went on for about well over 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks, almost at least every second night, sometimes every night. Nasty, like nightmares and demons and ghosts and like voices, hearing voices and whatnot. So it can stir up a lot of like strange, unusual phenomena in the mind. But when you look at that aspect of the more heavy practices, which death is a component part, there was a particular senior monk from Canberra, and he'd been meditating for 30 years, and he didn't have a lot of success with the meditation, because he was living in the general community. He would have been very busy, a lot of responsibilities, a lot of teaching, chatting, appointments, helping out with the Buddhist community, and maybe even multi-faith, all this kind of stuff. And he spoke with a meditation master who came from Thailand, Luangpur Tui from Nong Khai, and he said, "Look, I'm struggling a bit with the meditation here." He said, "I've been practicing for 30 years. I've tried many things." He said, "I'm not really making much progress with the meditation." He said, "It's reasonable, but I'm really not getting much depth at all." And what Luangpur Tui recommended was the contemplation of death, because death is the final finale. Death is the end of all current conditions in the present life. An ending of the major conditions, because naturally consciousness will continue on to the second rebirth. But his words were, when everything with the meditation, when everything fails, you do contemplation of death, because death brings an end to almost everything, as within the human experience. And he did that. He did get good results. It's something that you've got with these things. You need to be a little bit careful. So you do these things in a very like a light, fluffy way. You can use say death mantras. If anyone, this kind of practice, the way I would approach it, if I was a beginner or a long-term practitioner, I would use, to start off with, just to play it safe, I would use just one mantra, a small mantra once every several minutes, and then you can feel it out. So like death is near, or death is sure, or death will come to me. If you really want to see, if you really want to get the mind settled and drop that thinking process, death the death contemplation has got more force and more, say, tranquility effect, more suppression effect to suppress thought and to quieten the mind than all these practices, these very, very, very heavy practices that the monastics do. And and then you feel it out. So every couple of minutes, and then the bottom line is, as long as you feel okay, and as long as your mood does not come down beyond an acceptable range. One thing you notice straight away with this kind of practice is it does quieten you down. So if you're a very very bubbly, very outgoing, sociable, engaging, it will definitely quieten you down at least to a small degree. But it's got for people who are quite serious meditators, you may find it quite useful because you'll put the meditation before becoming some great social butterfly in the general community. As far as you're concerned, we've got lay disciples who don't like people ringing them, who don't like people coming round to their homes and just dropping in for a cup of tea. They're doing minimum 4 to 5 hours every single day, and that's it's very, very solid. And their whole lifestyle, around their homes, they have minimal activities, duties. Even things like pot plants, they mainly have 1 or 2 pot plants. They give away everything else. There's only like 1 television, 1 toaster, 1 stereo, maybe possibly for the Dharma talks, one sewing machine, washing machine, just 1 of everything in the whole house, 1 laptop, 1 phone. So you're minimizing the amount of activity, the amount of duties and responsibilities. So with the death meditation, you can start off with that, just 1 little mantra every couple of minutes, and then if you feel comfortable with it, you can drop it down to 1 every say 60 seconds, and you just feel it out. But this one is very, very useful for meditators who really struggle. They've been practicing minimum a year, 10 years, and they just can't get any peace or calm. I find that dark color meditation quite good, and it's very, very safe. These body practices, like death, the body practice, 4 elements. You've got to be careful with those approaches. You sort of go very, very gently and just feel your way. But it's probably the way I'm practicing now is probably the best meditation I've seen. Since I've been since I started in the monastery. It was quite funny. Even though I was talking quite a bit yesterday, I thought I'd be able to go to sleep, reasonably at a reasonable time. I was still awake at 3 a.m. this morning. I probably got about probably at least 2 hours or 2.25 hours. But funny enough, I don't feel exhausted. I had a strong cup of tea before I came down. But it's amazing, even though I've been, talking, compared to my normal daily routine, talking excessively, I really don't feel tired at all. I don't feel, because the thing is, as many of you are aware, with Dhamma, when you're talking about Dhamma, even if I'm teaching with the disciples, I'm also teaching myself at the same time, because I'm exploring different aspects of the Buddhist teaching, and it's got an energizing effect. And this is why I keep putting emphasis on that, especially on that changeability principle, and the contemplation, the developing an understanding of yourself as a person, an understanding of your family dynamics, your life, your circle of friends, and the world that we live in, because it has an effect. Every 60 seconds that you spend on coming to an understanding of life and the universe, it's increasing your energy and your potential for meditation. And to give you an idea, we had one abbot in Italy, and he wasn't really gung ho with this whole jhana, incredible samadhi type of scenario. He had one particular teacher in Thailand who used to love to walk meditation, a very old Thai monk from the forest tradition, and he would just walk meditation, and then roughly every 2 or 3 minutes, he would go straight to contemplation, developing an understanding of the mind, feelings, mind states, all this kind of stuff, and then go back to the walking, and he would just go back and forth, and he did that for years and years and years on end. He did get enlightened eventually, and but the abbot in Italy was saying that he said from what I've seen that you don't have to walk and sit. Even Ajahn Chah said this. You don't have to sit on your cushion for hours on end. You need samadhi for wisdom to arise, but that same thing, your understanding has got to be at the same level as your peaceful meditation. You never ever allow the wisdom to fall behind, because you can have the most incredible samadhi which will completely blow your mind, and you can have that for 3 or 4 lifetimes straight, but it's not going to get you. It will be incredible. You'll be amazed and impressed, but it will not get you enlightened at all if you don't actually make use of that and do your investigation and to develop into deep insight into one's human experience. So, and the whole thing as well. Say for example, if I had cancer, and I was doing the death contemplation to prepare my mind, that would be the death contemplation. There's a number of ways that you can approach it. You need to do it in a way which is comfortable for you. You need to keep yourself emotionally comfortable. But the thing is that if you eventually have to leave and you pass on, and you've got that established, there will be very little fear at death. You won't be struggling. You won't be fighting and kicking. I've seen people who they're terrified. It's like they're putting up a fight. They don't want to go, and you don't want to die in a mind state like that. It's not good. If there's real confusion, if there's fear, you could be reborn in the human realm in unfortunate circumstances because of how disturbed the mind is, or you could even go. It's quite possible if the karma's not good, the underlying karma's not good. You could even drop down to possibly even the ghost realms. These things are possible. So you want a situation where, especially with that kind of meditation, where the mind is composed. There's a degree of emotional balance, stability, and your ability to let go. Because the more peaceful you are, the more you are able to let go at the point of death. These are the underlying factors which will give you a good rebirth. There'll be multiple factors involved, but that will be involved in the equation. So the more peaceful, the more still, the more pure, the more wise your mind is at death, the greater your potential, your parami for a better quality, at least say human birth, or even higher than that. So, and even Longpo Tui said that he said for anyone, he said something along the lines of, it was with the monks. He said, even with the young monks, he said, for anyone who's been in robes for 2 or 3 years only, he said, and they go back to their families for whatever reason, you have not wasted your life, you have not wasted your human birth. So even just 2 or 3 years, even if that person lives, even as a young person, they could be in their 20s, say 25, even if they went to live on till 70 or 80 years of age, the 2 or 3 years that they've been a monk, they just don't lose that development like that. It just doesn't fade away and disappear completely. It stays with you. Even the monks, our monks who've been with us and had to go back for whatever reason, the vast majority of them don't lose the parami. They don't lose the qualities they had previously. The younger men, what's the right words? The younger men, they're still interested in say relationships with women and enjoying their life and travel and whatnot, which is quite understandable. But the older men, they tend to be more solid, and they have greater stability, and the qualities that they develop, they're at greater strength. Even when you see them several years later, even 5 or 10 years later, the older say disciples, their underlying qualities are actually more prominent than the younger people who go back. See, I think I'm almost out of time. So because you guys have responsibilities and duties with the rooms and the kitchen and whatnot, so I better stop there. And then we've got we've got duties, responsibilities, and then we've got lunch, and then we come back. I've got another Dharma talk. Just if you can please give me another topic for the last Dharma talk this afternoon. Be anything you like. Actually, no, what am I saying? We're 9:30 now, so we've still got an hour. We've got an hour of practice till 10:30, and we've got. Let's have a look here. We've got 9. Okay. 8:30, 9:30. Yeah, 9:30. So you've got city walking meditation. It's only at 10:30. Yeah, we go back and tidy the cottages. Okay, so let me think now. This sitting walking meditation. Is there any particular meditation with this last hour, this 9:30 to 10:30, and then you do you pack and tidy the cottages after that? Does anyone want to do a certain style of meditation? Is there anything you want me to just talk on briefly before we do this session, this hour? Is there anything at all? I've gone over the major things. I'm just trying to think if there's anything substantial. Yeah, right. We'll be doing a metta meditation this afternoon. So I've given you guys enough information. You can just choose. You can just continue with the style that you like. But yeah, for people who are drowsy or sleepy, it's always good to set a walk meditation, and you'll get a better quality sit. The restlessness, the tiredness, it tends to drop away. It's good to sit, but sometimes you're better off like walking. Like say walking previously, and you'll find that the quality of the